Welcome to The Kindness Project, the podcast designed to share stories of kindness and share how kindness can make positive change in our world, one small act at a time. On this week's The Kindness Project, exploring outside your bubble, ancient history, and we interview Luke Humphrey from the Money Charity. Hi, and welcome to episode 9 of The Kindness Project. I'm joined today by a girl who can fight like a Viking, philosophise like a Roman, and walk like an Egyptian. It's Charlotte Dames!
And I'm here today with wannabe Trivial Pursuit master, Chris Dames.
See, I think I'm quite good at Trivial Pursuit. I mean, there's a gaming bar I go to with my mates, and I'm currently reigning Trivial Pursuit champion.
But not at home, you're not.
Well, that's the thing. At home, Cassie is currently... the last game was a draw. The game before that, I lost. Now... who is Trivial Pursuit champion in your house, but certainly it's a bone of contention in ours, and hopefully I'll get to win. I'll win back my crown. Have you given any more thought about the best piece of trivia? Have you got any more pieces of trivia you like? Because we spoke about that a little while ago, didn't we?
Yeah, I don't really know because, in all honesty, I'm not a very trivia kind of person.
You like your little bubble, don't you?
I like my little bubble. I got my little bubble. I don't know much about what's outside my little bubble.
Yeah.
Because I just keep to my own.
Do you think there's something to be said for exploring outside a little bubble?
Yeah, there's obviously some good to come from exploring outside your little bubble. Obviously, your little bubble.
I don't know how many times we're going to say bubble.
But honestly, there's some good can come of it because obviously.
Yeah, because you don't want to restrict your world view, do you?
You don't want to restrict your view of the world. It's like, if you were only to look at a world from one person's view, then would you really be seeing the world properly at all?
Well, there's an argument to say that the only thing you can do is look at it from your own perception, but taking time to try to understand somebody else's worldview, even if it's diametrically opposed to yours, is worth doing, because then at least you get a fresh new perspective. But I love your love of ancient cultures, because I think the Greek and Romans were good at that.
It's more mythology, like the stories they came up with about the gods and like the Egyptians, they believed that when a person's soul died, they went through 12 gates on the boat of Ra.
Yeah.
And at midnight, I think it was midnight, they
could have been 11:30, I mean...
they went to the court.
What time was it? 9:42?
Midnight.
Oh, at midnight.
They were put in front of, I think his name is Osiris, the god of...
Is it Egyptian? Right,
the Egyptian god of death, I think, but no, that was Anubis. And anyway, their heart was measured against a feather.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about this.
If their heart was heavier, then they went to...
previous podcast we talked about the book and the Amazon TV series American Gods.
Yes.
So Anubis was in that and did that to people who
Did he have a jackal head?
No, he had a human head.
Oh, well, obviously all of them had human heads, but...
Yeah.
To see, Anubis is usually depicted with the head of a jackal.
So he can be depicted as both. But the interesting thing, and let's move right on to... question of the podcast. Out of all of the ancient civilizations you like, what one would you choose to live in?
The Greeks, they were really smart. They had some really good opinions. The Romans, they were all about war and combat, but obviously...
So were the Vikings, though, right?
Yeah, but there was some nice Viking.
Steve. Yes, you know what? Steve the Viking was a little bit awesome. There were two, actually. Steve the Viking...
And his wife, Rosilda.
His mate Alan was all right as well. His mate Alan was all right.
But the Egyptians, they had some really weird ideas about sacrifices. They thought that sometimes they thought that if your husband died, you were to be killed as well.
And then thrown in,
So the Vikings, they treated their wives like royalty.
Okay.
So if a man disrespected his wife, she had the right to cut off his lower area and hang it in display in her house.
Awesome. Let's just quickly move on for that. I'm sort of edging towards the Greeks. I don't know about you.
No, I'd love to be a Viking woman right now.
Well, look, whatever floats your boat. Being a Viking is less attractive now you've told me that story, obviously.
Yeah, but it wasn't just that. They had the money of the household. They were given the money because they were seen to be able to predict future issues and stuff.
Gotcha.
And also, if a man was divorced by his wife, it wasn't the wife that was shamed, it was the man. Okay. It was never the wife, it was always the man that was shamed.
See, I didn't know that about Norse culture, because I assumed that Norse culture was quite a masculine-led culture because they've got a reputation of
aggressive violence,
of pillaging other aggressive violence.
Not all of them like that.
But it's interesting you get that. So again, because of that, and maybe because the Romans are a step too far in the wrong direction, I'm going to go with Greece. I'm going to go with Greek, but you'd go with Norse.
I'd go with Norse.
Okay.
Yeah, I like some of their gods.
So what we want to do is we want to hear from our listeners now. The question of the podcast is if you could choose to live in an ancient civilization, and actually let's open it up. If you could live in any era in the past, what would you choose? Now, you can get in touch with us in a number of ways, can't you, Charlotte?
Yes. The Twitter, Hola Kindness, HOLA Kindness.
So you can get in touch with us on Twitter with Holla Kindness. On email, you can get in touch with us at holla@thekindnessproject.co.uk, or you can respond to our individual Twitter handles.
At Charlotte J. Dames, CHARLOTTE, J. Dames, DAEMS.
Or Chris Dames, CHRISDAEMS. So you can get in touch with us personally on Twitter. Or alternatively, we've got a Facebook group. Neither of us know at this point how to get into it, but if you visit...
Use the website.
Yeah, absolutely. Use the website, www.thekindnessproject.co.uk. So feel free to get in touch then. And feel free to answer any of our previous official question of the podcast questions, which were...
The most philosophical one I can probably think of that we did is...
Is most people generally good?
Yeah.
That was one. So
that one we're trying to find out.
So feel free to...
the one about your favourite book characters. Would you be more like your favourite book characters?
Yeah, and we're really interested in your favourite piece of trivia ever. As long as it's not about the emasculisation of men in Norse culture, because after hearing the story today, I'm a bit scared about that. So what's your favourite piece of trivia? And again, today's one is, what ancient civilization would you go back and visit?
And also don't be afraid to ask us questions, and you can also answer the unofficial ones as well.
Yeah, the most pertinent unofficial one is, what if you don't like pigs in blankets, why? I think we talked about pigs in blankets before, but more importantly, if you think Nick Cage is a genuinely good actor, what are you on about, frankly? Because I'm still remaining unconvinced.
Like you to point out the good points about Nicolas Cage.
Well, yeah, give us the positives. We're all about sort of positiveness and kindness. If you think Nick Cage is good, please email us with an example. But more importantly than that, this is a podcast about sharing stories of kindness. So what we'd like to hear is your... We've been too busy talking about eggs and sausage, pigs in blankets and ancient Egyptian culture and Nick Cage to think about what this podcast is all about. And the podcast at its heart is about sharing stories of kindness and helping all of us become kinder people by just providing practical tips on how to do that. So, with that in mind, shall we get on with the show?
Yeah. Hello and welcome to this podcast. Kindness News. So we are basically going to be telling you about news stories of kindness.
Okay, that's fine. I'm surprised the Kindness News jingle isn't changing to Skater Boy by Avril Lavigne, because you quite like that song at the moment, don't you? For this week's Kindness News, let me take you to one of my favourite places in the world.
Romford.
Not Romford. Not Romford. Funny enough, Romford is up there on my places I'd like to avoid list.
They've got a good cheap cinema.
So let me take... the cheap cinema's not bad, is it? That has got a good cheap cinema. But let me take you to one of my places in the world. So good they named it twice. Romford. I mean, New York, the Big Apple. Where what a number of kindergartens, a number of infant schools are doing is trying to teach something that's not always been considered an academic subject. Kindness. So they're teaching kindness. And they're doing this in really simple ways so that they can help the younger kids understand the importance of kindness. So one thing they ask is, how are you feeling? And they get some really funny answers. Happy, one girl said. Sick, said another. And apparently that happens all the time. The teacher who's spearheading the work said, our world is a kind of a scary place, and we can't always control what's happening outside, but what we can teach them is how they respond. So even though often these young kids can't control what happens in their lives, they can control what they do about it and the action they take. Really interestingly, that sounds like something that I'm really interested in around philosophy called Stoicism, which often talks about the fact that even though you can't control anything else in the world,
you can control the actions you take.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're all human, right? Sometimes it's tough to do that, but you can control your thoughts, feelings, or you can try to control your thoughts, feelings, reactions, and how you respond to the outside world. And actually, I think you've got a choice to either respond positively, with kindness, with love, with care and with affection, or respond negatively, which does nobody any benefits longer term. So what this kindness curriculum talks about and teaches these kids is coping techniques. So it talks about mindfulness, it talks about resilience, and it talks about being just generally awesome to your fellow man, to these kids really young. Now, I actually think that that's a really positive step in the right direction, because the younger you teach children about some of the techniques to help them become better people, as well as some coping techniques when things don't go wrong.
The more embedded it is in.
Exactly. And often you could argue that sometimes that should be done by the families of these kids, but if they're in environments where that's not happening, I actually think doing it in school is quite a great thing to do. What do you think? Would you think that kids of sort of Sophie's age, 5-6 years old, would benefit from
a kindness
training, mindfulness training, coping techniques?
I mean, if you went full-blown coping techniques, stoicism on them, I think it'd probably go over some of their head. Yeah. But
look, we haven't got to talk about like Stoic philosophers, but talking about some of the ideas of Stoicism to young kids is I actually think might be a useful thing to do.
Yeah, I think that'd be useful. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it's a school in Jackson Heights in New York City, and it's part of the kindness curriculum, which is been developed by a university in America, the University of Wisconsin. And that's not always easy to say. Wisconsin.
Wisconsin.
Now you're confusing me. So, kindness news story of this week is in one of my favourite places in the world, not Romford, New York City. They're teaching kids resilience, the principles of Stoicism, and how important it is just to be generally awesome people and be kind to each other.
The kindness curriculum, that has a ring to it.
It's quite good, the kindness curriculum, isn't it? Almost as good as the kindness project. So that's it for kindness news this week. We'll see you next time. So today I'm joined by Luke Humphrey from the Money Charity. And Luke, if you don't mind, we'll spend some time exploring a little bit about the Money Charity, what it does, so you can help me understand a little bit about how you spread a little bit of kindness in the world, really.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Awesome. So first of all, I know I didn't send you this question in advance, but I like to surprise people a bit.
Yeah, go on.
Before we talk about the charity, tell me a little bit about you.
I'm currently in my first job with the charity. I recently graduated from the University of Leeds in July. As I was saying to you before, I'm from Bristol originally, and yeah.
And what made you What made you go into the charity sector? Was that always an aspiration?
It was always something I wanted to do. I always felt like I wanted to do a job which involved helping people in some way, and I was rubbish at things like science and maths, so I knew I wasn't going to go into, medicine and stuff. So
being a researcher was off the cards, right?
Yeah. So I did a degree in international development. I was just fascinated in the way that other countries in other parts of the world came to be how they are in their position in the world. And when I found the money charity, it just seemed so kind of straightforward. I had worked part-time when I was at university and had no idea what tax codes were. I was building up a student debt that I didn't really know much about when I first applied to university, and I'd never received any financial education. I read about the charity, read about the job, and just thought it just makes so much sense. Why is there not more of an emphasis in schools on teaching kids about money management, about the kind of things to do with taxes and insurance and mortgages that are going to come up later in their life? It's kind of really a necessary life skill.
Yeah, absolutely. Up to the point where you went to university, you didn't have a shred of financial education, or
not really. Only so I had kind of like citizenship lessons in schools where they talk about drugs, sex ed, and possibly talked about money. If they did, I don't remember it, and it would have been one lesson out of the whole year. But yeah, so I just thought, when I signed up to go to uni, I didn't know that, for example, my student debt would have interest on it. I just wasn't told. So it's just things like that, you don't, if someone doesn't tell you, and, unfortunately I wasn't the most kind of adventurous kid myself, looking at all these things myself, because they just looked like really uninteresting financial stuff at the time. It just kind of passes you by until you have to learn it the hard way when you're older.
Gotcha. And I think you're right. I think when you get thrown into, even though you might have support of parents or support the people around you, there's certainly a sort of step where you take where sort of the knowledge you've got is not enough to make some of the decisions you need to make. Certainly. So that's great. Thank you for sharing that. Tell me a little bit about the money charity and the work you do.
Yeah, so like I was saying, the thing that attracted me is just the straightforwardness of the work they do. It just makes so much sense. So we're the UK's financial capability charity. So the main thing we do is go into schools, and then also with adults as well. We go and do workshops with them and just talk to people about money management. We're not there to sell anything or flog off a product. It's just sit down for an hour, 2 hours, however long it is, talk to people about their worries about money, how they view money, what their spending patterns are, and just kind of help people see things in the right way when they think about money, so they're not constantly worried, constantly having that extra thing in their mind. So for kids as well, to talk to them about things like what would you expect your income to be, what right now is your targets to spend money on. And we've had some great responses in the past of kids coming up with some great ideas about what they want to spend their money on, but then they start thinking about, my mum and dad have to make this decision every day about what to spend food on, what to spend on when they want to go on holiday or want to buy something nice for themselves, and they have to think about their income, taxes, mortgages, and I think it makes them really think about those decisions in the future, and also appreciate the amount of decisions their parents make. So.
You know what? I think you're right. I think when I've done a couple of projects and sat on a couple of financial education sessions run by an organisation called Red Star that work in this area. Really, really good. And some of the kids, particularly the younger kids, sort of 8 or 9, have some awesome answers about sort of what they want to spend money on. I think one of them was, I think by the time that I'm older, I'll be able to buy a rocket. I don't know whether Kim Jong-un, this was a North Korea thing. I'm hoping it was more of a space exploration.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
I didn't know, but it was some awesome things. So what sort of answers, what sort of responses do you get when you ask kids what they intend to spend their money on?
Some kids, just say the usual. Oh, when I'm older, I want a house and a car and stuff. Is very straightforward. And then, like you said, there's some out there ones like talking about rockets, and we've had ones before just saying, I just want to buy loads of dogs. They just wanted a house full of dogs. We had that as well, but then we've had some. So we do kind of budgeting as well to get them to look at how much money they spend now on things. We've had kids say, they've worked out the sums in their head and they spend 180 quid. I think it was 182 quid. One of our kids recently said they were spending on chewing gum because they just bought some every day or every week pretty much after school, and they were like, oh, I don't need to spend that. I can spend that on something else. I can save that up or put it in a savings account, or I can spend it on something bigger that makes me happier. And that was really rewarding to hear that they had worked that out just by kind of looking at how they spend their money every day and properly think about it.
That's quite a chewing gum habit, though, right? I mean, 182 quid a month on chewing gum is quite a lot of, not a Wrigley's or a Hubba Bubba or whatever. I haven't had chewing gum for like 20 odd years.
No, it's very much a school thing, I think.
It is, isn't it? It is. So tell me a story about how your work has had an impact on people's lives.
Yeah, so we like I said, that was one kind of case of a kid finding extra money, but we get plenty of adults and adult workshops. They're people who come along quite often, have low incomes and just struggling to get by and need to have some advice, some help, and a different way to look at things. And we've had one woman recently come back to another workshop. She came for a second one, and she said since she came to the first one, she properly sat down, looked at her budget, talked to her family about it, which she'd never done. Talking about money with her family was, a taboo. It was a no-no, basically. And she said since then she's actually started saving up money just where she can find it. She realised that she doesn't have to go into Costa and buy a coffee. She'll just bring in a flask from home. It saves two quid every time she does it. And then so she went on holiday in the end to Swansea, and she was saying that was the first time she's been on holiday to visit family there. She had spending money. That is something that, when you're not on much money and you've got a lot of worries, to be able to do that and save that money up and go on a holiday is just so nice.
Certainly, I love it. Absolutely love it. And how do adults get involved in the sessions? Do they sign up? Do you advertise it? How does it work?
Yeah, so right now we have kind of two areas. We have a space for vulnerable adults. So today, for example, we are working with another charity who help homeless people and people who sleep rough in London. So we're going over there to do a workshop on, independent living, how to do what kind of get jobs in their situation to be able to kind of break that cycle that they're in. And so other community groups can contact us and say, we want a workshop for the people that we help, whether that's, homeless people. We've done one recently with young adults with autism. And then we also have workplace workshops as well. So an employer can call up and say, and we're trying to build, if somebody wants to come and just do one without being attached to a community group or a workplace. And that's something we're developing as well over the next few years, I think.
You're going to look at building that. But it's all about collaboration, right? You're in a position where you work with other organisations where you're aligned to support the goal of helping people understand money a bit better. Do you, you mentioned earlier on about not having any financial education.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose in my mind, I think about whether it should be part of the core curriculum.
Yeah.
And why not? So why do you think it isn't taught more in schools, colleges, or universities?
It's a tricky thing because it was introduced. It's supposed to be introduced as part of the curriculum in 2014, and most people in the industry were absolutely ecstatic with that. It's kind of like we've finally gotten the message across to the education system, to government. But since then, we've not seen much of a big impact, a big effect, because it kind of has turned into a box ticking exercise that is just thrown in with, like I was saying before, maybe I would have had a lesson, I barely would remember it because it's just part of just a bunch of things to do with drugs education, maybe like employability lessons and stuff. stuff like that.
So it's thrown in with the sort of PHSE.
Yeah, and it's very awkward in that position, because the thing is, the stuff that you'll be talking about, it involves numeracy, it involves financial literacy as well. So there's bits of it in other parts of subjects like English and maths. So it's not, completely fitting to just PSHE. And of course, teachers are very busy people, and it's hard to get all of these different things on the curriculum. One group wants to talk about financial education, another wants to talk about acrobatics and circus skills, and another one wants to talk about making sure that sports and PE is still part of it, and just it's a lot. We know it's a lot for them to work out a proper plan. So that's why we provide teacher resource packs as well. So these are packs of material which can essentially help the teacher structure the whole lesson. So, teachers aren't necessarily any more financially capable than anyone else. So this is a way for them to look at it and say, okay, I feel like I have the confidence now to go and teach this. I have this quality material and information to help the kids be able to understand what we're talking about when we talk about planning and budgeting and things like mortgages and taxes, and we do it in an engaging way. I think a lot of people would say, oh, kids don't want to know about that stuff, but they do. They are really interested most of the time. They want to know what their parents spend money on. They want to know if their parents are constantly going on about how the mortgage is eating up their money. What does that mean? Why is that there? Why do they have to have a mortgage? Why do they have to pay taxes and things like that? Is something which I think isn't as dry and boring as people think for kids.
Well, I think the interesting thing there is something you mentioned about being included in sort of these ancillary sort of subjects that aren't considered core in education. Yeah, certainly I think the relevance of financial education is a lot more than some of the other sort of ancillary things that you'd expect, and I think there is an argument to say it should be more part of the core curriculum, and I don't know why it isn't, but that's a different argument. It's really interesting because when we work with clients, and I run a financial planning business, but when we work with clients, a lot of what we do is a little bit about education, helping them understand what the right route is, but also a lot about sort of teaching behaviours and talking about overcoming biases and sort of thinking more pragmatically and practically about doing the right things around money. So how much of the work you do is about just knowledge, just education, and how much is about exploring behaviour?
So I think we look at both quite a lot. The knowledge side of things, we don't, like I said, we don't go there to sell any kind of products and stuff. So the knowledge side of things is just getting that basic understanding of why you need contents insurance or home insurance, or why you would need to take out a mortgage for a house and things like that. Then we also we do look at, especially in the adult sphere, kind of people's spending patterns, what they think when they think about credit and debt. There's a wide variety of ways to think about credit card spending. Some people don't want a credit card, they don't want any kind of loan, they just hate the idea of being in debt whatsoever. And there's some people who would spend all of their money through their credit card and would just kind of be like, well, it's there, I just pay it off in minimum repayments. So there's that real difference between people who would never want to touch a kind of credit product and people who rely on it completely. And we quite often find, the best resolve is somewhere in the middle. If you need a credit product, then just make sure you're getting the very best one for you. It's not the big scary thing. But at the same time, probably not best to rely on it and make only your minimum repayments on it. So it just creates problem debt rather than just a bit of debt.
Yeah, okay, awesome. I'm a bit of a fan of really unusual trivia. So give me the best piece of money trivia you've ever heard.
Okay, I'll give it my best shot. So we produce money stats once every month, and they're just a rundown of loads of different statistics to do with savings, mortgages, and since I started back in October, there's been plenty that just jump out of me. They're just quite shocking, sometimes a little bit depressing. So one of them that we have is that a survey found that 35% of people in the UK have no savings whatsoever.
And huge number.
Yeah, massive. So that's a lot of people who, they experience any small financial shock, boiler breakdown, they need to replace their washing machine or fridge, and suddenly they have to take out a loan to cover it. They don't have any savings buffer. And then the recent one we had was we found that looking at the Office for National Statistics, wages in real terms haven't risen at all since February 2017. And that was a bit of a depressing one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a long term plan, right? Empowering people with financial education is never going to be an immediate quick fix, is it? It's
No.
the longer term thing. But yeah, that's right. My favourite is something, and I can't remember where I got the stat from. I wrote about it probably a couple of months ago now. That 53% of people know what APR means, as in like the annual percentage rate, and 74% of people know what LOL means. We might have a bit of work to do, but that's fine.
Yeah, that really demonstrates it.
I think there's a challenge in making these sort of subjects more engaging. Right? If we, I think we could probably learn a lot from the way that we communicate nowadays, potentially sort of looking at how we improve the way we talk about these sort of things. But if you had a magic wand and you could change one thing to support the people you help today, what would it be?
I think I'd want them to all feel much more confident about their financial situation, about how they feel when they talk about finances, because people come in these groups and sit down and talk to us, and usually it can be a bit awkward at first because no one really wants to say the first thing and just say, I have this issue, But as soon as they do, they realise that there's so many other people in the room that are in the same situation, saying, my income doesn't add up to having money left over every month. It's tricky to make ends meet all the time. I'm having to rely on credit cards through this, and then they feel much better about their situation because they know there's other people around them with them. And then we sit there and we kind of say to them, it's good not to bury your head in the sand about this thing. Go and talk to your creditor. Tell them if you're struggling to make repayments. We always say the worst thing to do is just to not be in contact with creditors, because they'll just see you as not making any effort, and you just it gets worse and worse. And I think a lot of people just need that little boost of confidence to be like, okay, I know how to sort it out now. I feel like I've got the tools, I've got these materials that tell me how to talk to a creditor and how to talk to people who are in the council when I need to sort out paying off my council tax. And it just really changes the way that they look at their money when they know that they're not awful people because they have a bit of debt, or then they're not awful because they're not saving any money and maybe they spend a bit too much here and there. And that transformation is really, really positive to see.
Yeah, I think it's that problem shared, isn't it?
Yeah.
So the problem shared, problem halved. As soon as you start talking about it with, it sort of in my life certainly, for us it's about Cassie and I having a partnership to understand our money, as opposed to me sitting on my own worrying about it. And that problem shared, problem halved. It's a shame. It's a real shame that a lot of people. Number one, I think there's some stigma related to talking about money.
Yeah, definitely. We still struggle with it in schools. Convincing parents and teachers to talk about it because they don't feel like they want their kids asking questions about it.
Certainly.
It's something, you start talking about it and it really opens up a whole new dialogue with the people around you, and it makes you feel a lot better about it. People know the situation you're in. They're more likely to give you a break if you need a bit of extra help, or it just makes things a lot easier for you.
You know what, Luke? I think people are generally good, aren't they? Maybe I've got my rose-tinted glasses on, but my observation is that if somebody knows a little bit about your situation, number one, it makes people feel more comfortable to put their hand up and go, you know what, I've been there. I've suffered from that. I've struggled
Completely,
with
yeah.
that, and this is what I learned through that process. But also, people want to help out. I think if you put your hand up, but it's pride and ego often gets in the way of some of those people just saying, like, I need some help. Putting your hand up and saying I need some help is one of the most difficult things.
And especially with money, there is a lot of pride in being able to be good with your money. So if you feel like you're not, then it's like a great shame, but it's really not. You just need to talk openly about it, and like you say, problem shared, problem halved.
Great. So what's the future hold for the Money Charity?
So we just want to push getting into more schools, doing more education, because we feel that's really vital. The feedback we've had from our school workshops has been fantastic, and we want to continue reaching out to more places, fighting for its place on the curriculum to be properly there, and then in the adult workshop, we've seen that improve massively over the past year or so, reaching out to more vulnerable adults as well, which we know are more susceptible to getting into problem debt because they don't understand the financial products that they're purchasing, and so we think that work there is also really, really valuable to making sure that those people are on top of their money and are able to manage their money properly.
Awesome. And how can our listeners help?
So we have a website, www.themoneycharity.org.uk. You can go on there and look at the resources we offer: teacher resource packs, student money manual for future students, a regular money manual for adults. We currently have a marathon runner for the London Marathon in April. So there's a whole press release and everything about that. You can view that on our website and donate. And you can also donate through Next Gen Planners. So they are a organisation which have partnered with us, and you can donate money to sponsor a school workshop, and you can choose a workshop in your local area, and so you can be part of making sure the kids in your local area, maybe your own kids, are financially educated.
Yeah, certainly. That's awesome. And what we'll do is we'll make sure that on the show notes on the Kindness Project website, we've got links to the Next Gen Planners Partnership, the guy who's running the marathon, and the Money Charity website too, so that we've got links.
Sounds fantastic. And we'll be raving about it as well on social media as much as we can.
And we'll certainly share that. Is your marathon runner a first-time marathon runner? Yes.
So this is his first marathon. This is our first marathon runner, should I say? Yeah.
Okay.
So this is the first time we're in the London Marathon. We're very happy to have Tim, is his name. We're very happy to have him on board, and he's looking at possibly trying to break a world record as well as the fastest marathon run as a tree, I believe. So his idea is to go dressed as a money tree. He just has to run it in under 4.5 hours, and hopefully that should mean he gets the world record.
You know what? I've got a bit of a minor obsession with world records. Everybody seems to have a world record for me. But I love the fact that not only is Tim trying to break the world record of doing the marathon as a tree, but there's somebody who's done it before in 4.5 hours.
It's just actually no one's done it before, but I think the idea is that it has to be broken within that time for it to count as like a fast marathon.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I did my first marathon last year. I did the Paris Marathon, and the only record I was even close to beating was the slowest marathon ever. It was that bad, but I got round it. It's fine. Okay, cool. That's awesome. Thanks for your time, Luke.
No, thank you. It's been great.
I appreciate you spending some time with us.
Yeah.
And please do, if you're listening to this, visit the Money Charity website.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Chris.
No worries.
Okay.
Have a really good weekend, mate.
Yeah, you too.
Okay, we've come to the end of another podcast.
So what did you think of my interview with Luke Humphrey?
Luke Humphrey. I thought we agreed it was Humphrey. Luke Humphrey.
Well, I'm thinking Luke Humphrey. I think, and what you thinking?
Being rebellious.
That is the benefit of having two names that could be first names, Humphrey Luke or Luke Humphrey. It could work. No?
Well, I wanted to talk about what we usually talk about at this time of the podcast, because we've just come to an end.
Oh, no!
I wanted to talk about last week's question in the podcast. Answered this week, answered last week, answered this week.
Okay, so what was last week's question in the podcast? Answered this week, answered last week, answered this week.
Oh, well, I believe it was...
Whether Luke should be called Luke Humphrey or Luke Humphrey.
That's something entirely separate. I believe it was, if you could sing one song perfectly, then what would it be?
Easy. Rag and Bone Man Human. I don't know if I mentioned that last week. We had a karaoke night Friday, didn't we, Charlotte? And I sang that, and I almost scared your friends, didn't I? I mean, I think halfway through they were getting into it, and then at the end they were like, "I can't believe you let your dad sing." I mean, it was.
I had to.
Why did you have to?
It was funny.
Oh, cheers. Right, but if I could sing one song perfectly today, I'd sing that, or James Brown, The Boss, because I'm properly into that song at the minute.
Wow.
However, other people had different answers, didn't they?
Yes. Benjamin Fabi.
Yeah.
Nessun Dorma.
Nessun. Shall I not sing all of this? Okay.
I've never heard that song before, so.
You've never heard Nessun Dorma?
No.
Are you joking? You've never heard Nessun Dorma?
No, I've never heard this.
That is an incredible song. I will play you Nessun Dorma once we're done.
Okay.
It's like have you ever heard of Pavarotti?
No. Darren Cook. I think that's how you say it. I'm very uncertain about name pronunciation.
What, Cook?
Yeah, but it's got an E on the end.
Cookie. No, it's actually Cook.
Alright, he said Mr. Blue Sky, which I love that song.
Now that is an incredibly good track, isn't it, Mr. Blue Sky?
Uh-huh.
So I really like that song. Actually, I'm not sure whether he means, like, you know, all the synthesized bit where he goes, Mr. Blue Sky. I'm not sure whether he means those bits or just the. Would he want to do all of it, or would he want just the main bits? We'll have to find out.
I suppose it's the whole song. I would love to be able to do a synthesized voice without actually having synthesizers. That'd be so cool.
True.
Okay. Another Cook, John Cook.
Without an E.
Without an E. Said Bridge Over Troubled Water or Life on Mars.
Is that John Cook, or is that John Cook?
John Cook.
John Cook.
No,
was that
Cook.
Darren Cook?
No, it's Cook. John Cook.
Like a bridge.
He also said, or Russ Abbott's Atmosphere.
Oh, what a tune. I mean, that is like 80. What's the cheesiest modern song you know?
Cheesiest?
Yeah.
You'd probably have to listen to some kids' TV show soundtracks for that.
Fair enough. But Russ Abbott's Atmosphere was there was a guy. I know we're going through a bit of an 80s education with you at the minute, Charlotte. But Russ Abbott was a 80s comedian who also decided to
patronise me. I have heard the song before.
You've heard of Russ Abbott's Atmosphere? Why are you not singing it right now then? Because it is quite catchy.
Pretty sure it's the one that goes Atmosphere.
Yeah, go on.
I love a party.
How's it go?
No, I'm not singing it.
It goes, oh, what an atmosphere. I love a party with a happy atmosphere. Is that the end?
Yeah, that's all I know.
Let me carry on singing. Deborah Myers had an answer. She said Tina Turner.
River Deep Mountain High.
River Deep Mountain High, which is an awesome track. I love that. Karina had an answer for me. She said,
I will always... Is that the wrong one?
What was it? What was you trying
I
to
will
sing?
Always love you, but I don't know if it's the right
cheers,
one.
Charlotte. I will always love you too. But yeah, who sung I Will Always Love You, do you know?
Nope.
So that was Dolly Parton originally. But then Whitney Houston.
I will always love.
I don't know who's meant to be singing that. Sounds a bit like Coldplay. Hayley Ball said, a song that I ended up, like a couple of years ago when the film first came out, hearing and then singing constantly because I couldn't get out of my head. And that was Let it go. Let it
go.
Don't hold it back,
hold it back anymore.
Please hold it back some more. And
you hold it back.
And then there was a conversation on Facebook that went around the lines of there should be a Cockney version of Let It Go just called Turn It In. And I can imagine that, can't you? Right, and then there was a bit of a conversation about lyrics, and then Heidi went, turn it in, shut up and drink your gin. And then John had a little bit of a alternative suggestion. But what do you reckon? What do you reckon on a sort of alternative Cockney version of Let It Go called Turn It In?
I think
they're having a babble, didn't you?
I think it'd be about pubs and stuff.
It would be about
and
pubs.
Football and dunno.
Well, are you saying that why are you sort of plugging into the broad race, sort of geographical stereotypes that all EastEnders like the pub and football?
I didn't say I just said it's the stereotype.
Okay, so that was our answers to the question of the podcast last week. But we also had some comments on kindness, and Chris Haycock, who has agreed to come on a future Kindness Project podcast as a guest, because I think his input will be hugely valuable. He's one of the kindest guys that I know. Said, kindness, once shunned as a weakness, there's a new revolution happening where people are beginning to show a little more compassion, especially in business. And I agree with that, Charlotte. Hopefully we're seeing a lot more of that. I used to think that kindness was something that had to be put to one side when running a business. Now it's the backbone of almost everything I do, and it's working well. So Chris Haycock is a phenomenal guy, fantastically successful. So I asked him, what's the kindest thing someone has ever done for you? And Chris said, probably the time when somebody helped me out when I was homeless and gave me a bed for a few weeks in their family house. Now, that is an incredible thing to do, and obviously it's had a massive impact on Chris's life. So what do you think of that?
I think, that's probably important, because obviously if you're sitting out, and depends on really whether it was, depends how harsh the client was, but it is important still.
Yeah.
My words are very muddled right now.
Harsh climate is what you were trying to say.
Climate.
But certainly somebody having faith in another human being and giving them a home is brilliant. And I know that Chris is a massive advocate of helping people out too. So certainly an example, a shining paragon of kindness in Chris Haycock. But
what does that word mean?
A shining paragon, it means like a standout example.
Okay, I'll have to search the word paragon then.
Okay, so that's it for another Kindness Project. We'll see you next time, and have an awesome week until next episode.
Bye!